Welcome, everyone, to the Within the Margin podcast, where we speak with authors around the world to talk about their books, their inspiration, and all the finer details in life. Today, we are speaking with Jo Wilcox, who is the teacher, a mother, and the founder of Shine Books. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, no, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Wonderful. And it's pretty cool. We're speaking, you are in London and we're in Georgia. So that's pretty cool. We're across the pond here. So first introduce yourself and kind of tell us what makes Jo Jo.
Perfect. So as nicely introduced, I'm Jo, and I'm the author and founder of Shine Books. So I'm kind of traditionally a teacher, and then kind of moved into this world, which I'll chat to you guys about later, but the kind of inspiration behind the books. But I'm now on a mission to create a more inclusive world for our children, just to get them kind of talking, learning, enjoying, finding out about what makes us different, and how we're all unique in our own ways.
That's awesome. So go over, if you don't mind, the mission of Shine Books, because of course, with your books are going to be, two of your books are going to be actually on our Daydreaming Kids podcast, which we're really excited. And what is the mission you're going for? Because I love the idea of being different, but that's obviously that's okay. So kind of take over from there.
Yeah. So the kind of idea behind them is, so all of the characters have either got a neurodiverse condition, or they've got a disability, or they might just kind of behave or learn in a different way. So for me, I just wanted to bring to the forefront for children that actually we are all different. And I found there was a real sort of lack of awareness and just being normalized for young children about, conditions, be it like Tourette's or having ADHD or being dyslexic. So for me, it was about kind of giving children characters who have all got, they learn in different ways, they behave in different ways, and bringing them together and actually showing children that it's great to be different, and that it's that's what we all aspire to be. I mean, it would be very boring if everyone in the world was the same and we all learned the same and we looked the same. So it's just kind of really drumming that into kids, and also using books to kind of start those natural conversations, but without feeling like it's a lesson or that, it's children having to be taught about it. When I kind of first looked into it, I could find resources which sort of explained about conditions and the way we might behave or learn differently, but nothing about just what it's like to be different, and that actually, your friendships and your adventures and having lead characters who are neurodiverse. So I just wanted to create a kind of world of that where it just becomes more acceptable, really.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what is that inspiration moment where it was like, I have to write this book? You kind of figured out, you were doing research, and all of a sudden you were like, this is how I'm going to do it. Where was that spark?
So it was a kind of a combination of two things. So I actually taught primarily older kids, so kind of 15, 16, 17. And I found at that point there was such a lack of understanding, awareness, like a real stigma, that at that point, of my career, I knew there was a real issue and that something needed to be done much earlier on. I was having kind of parents embarrassed that their child had dyslexia, or, they were doing a test and the student who had extra time or different coloured paper or different tools to use was kind of drawing attention, and other kids were staring. And it was just such, for me, I found it alarming that at that age, it's even a thing, like the other kids care or weren't used to it, especially with, with things like dyslexia or being autistic, and actually things that are so common. And there's so many children now in the class that are different. That kind of stigma really, really concerned me. And then I guess the way it sort of then the spark came for children's books was, I've got two young daughters. And I would sort of sit and read with them of an evening, as I'm sure, many parents do. And
yes.
What they absorb from books and remember is mind blowing. My daughter would read a book about, a flying unicorn with a magic hairbrush. And 2 weeks later, she knows everything about it. She's still talking to all of her friends about it. And she's learned every single inch of that book. So for me, I was like, how wonderful would it be if we could still have those fun, enjoyable, engaging, lovely books, but they were actually helping our children to learn about people around them and what it's like, and how we are all different. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, no, definitely. Well, I love
Yeah.
the idea how you saw the older age groups and that it was concerning because it's a harder to have that conversation in the future. Like it's hard at that age group. In the beginning, if you, as you kind of say, like take the stigma away and be like, hey, this is a part of life. These are people we're going to like, these are people we're gonna, this is just part of their life. It's such an easier way because I can only imagine how well, the younger kids just respond well to it. Like I know
Yeah.
my daughter is, she has friends who, have disabilities on like mental disabilities. Um, I'm sorry. What would be sorry, this is a lack of my perspective. What would be the way you would phrase that? Is it neuro? What was it?
It's really difficult. It depends. I mean, I would
Okay.
always say with children, with parents, with other people, you should just ask them and how they would like to be referred, how they like to be talked to. I know a
Okay.
lot of autistic people I work with and children I teach like to be called autistic rather than having autism, because
Okay.
it's part of them, it's part of their makeup. It's not sort of something they've got and they're sort of carrying it around with them. Like, it is part of who they are.
Exactly.
But everyone, as with every person in the world, like, we're all different, so it's always best just to find out how people want to be talked about or included and all that sort of thing. But it's
Of
normally just
course.
either just with differences, I think, is the kind of nicest way for me to look at it, because then that covers everything. Whether for me, it's no different really if someone's got different color hair, or they wear glasses, or they've got dyspraxia, or they have ADHD. Like, it's just part of our makeup that makes
Part
us
of it.
who we are.
Exactly. Well, I wish I had your books when I was a kid because I feel like when I growing up, of course, my parents always were like, "Hey, be nice," and but I feel like the experience that I had as a kid was everyone who had a learning disability went into the special education class, and they were kind of put into a room, and we never really we didn't really deal with them. Like it was, they just kind of did their own thing, and then if you hung out with them outside, that was your experience. But within the school, that wasn't there. And
Yeah.
so that importance of being able to facilitate that conversation and, be more comfortable with those conversations and being able to, I don't know. I think it's such an important conversation, and the impact can be so grand. Because again, kind of I was going over with talking with my daughter, who's she's 6 years old, watching her with kids with disabilities. She's incredible. She is like just so kind, and like watching her and just being like, who taught her that?
Yeah.
Because it's just wonderful to watch them thrive because they know what to do. If you just put them in the situation, you give them a little bit of a little bit of knowledge to it, they're perfect with it.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said that older children start to have that judgment, or we start to look around. Like, kids are just so, like, there's no preconceptions. They're so inquisitive, and they just want to learn. And like you say, they don't know any different. So if they're around, everything from a much younger age, then it just never becomes a thing to them. So
Exactly.
for me, the books are, I'm kind of making it a thing so it can not be a thing. It's not. I need to work on how
Exactly.
catchy the slogan is, but yeah, it's for me. We look at, well, certainly my parents. There's things that for me now in society are completely normal that for them is not normal because they didn't grow up with it. So it's just as we go through life, and the world is definitely heading in the right direction. Like, it's becoming more inclusive, it's becoming more accepting, but it's anything we can put in place to help that, and to bring these conversations in. And like you said with your daughter, just that she'll just go up to someone and she'll chat about it,
Yeah.
and that's wonderful. Like, I think people shouldn't be scared to go and talk to someone, or ask someone, or why do you look different, or why do you use that, or why is this different color. Like, we all want to learn and we're inquisitive, but I think the older you get, the more scared you get to do that, or the more you feel you can't say that, or how many
Exactly.
conversations do we have as grown-ups like, oh, I can't ask them that, whereas it doesn't even
Exactly.
cross a child's mind. It's like, I want to know the answer to that, I'm going to ask it. Lovely. How much simpler the world would be if that never left us, if we just were just wonderfully inquisitive and wanted to learn.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of crazy because you find yourself, I'm a little more of I have moments in my life where I'm very outgoing, and I have very moments where I'm not outgoing. And so, but I feel like our kids are always shoving us in situations and making us better and being able to reach outside of our comfort zones because that's just what they do. It's just they're constantly inquisitive, and you give them the seeds of that knowledge. And of course, I would love for you to introduce kind of some of the characters of your books and kind of why you pick the characters the way you did. But yeah, watching them, it's amazing to watch them. But kind of the inspiration behind the whole daydreaming network is that idea of bringing all these various voices together and putting them in a spot to where kids can find and to where we can get out to much greater reach. And so I'm very excited, especially to bring your books onto our platform. So tell us more about kind of your characters and how they came about.
Yeah, so they've all they're all animals. So we've got an autistic aardvark, we've got a tortoise with Tourette's, a dog with dyslexia, but they all go to the same school and they're all friends. For me, it was really important that whilst I obviously wanted the readers to learn, a bit more about certain conditions or certain differences, I didn't want that to define the character. The characters are people and they have interactions and they have adventures and friends, and that for me is also the kind of subliminal message I want the books to have, is that it might be lovely for a girl who's, say, got dyspraxia to read a book and suddenly relate to that character, but then it's also great to just actually, oh, she just is going on a school trip today, I do that. Yeah. And that kind of understanding that they're just everyday normal people who do everything you and I do, and again, that message for children is just so important, that and because they sort of run alongside each other in other books, it might be that you really see other qualities. So Tariq, who's my tortoise with Tourette's, whilst his book obviously focuses a little bit more about having Tourette's and how what strategies or what techniques he might use in everyday things, in the other books you see how kind he is, and how caring, and so you kind of see the different qualities in the different books, because it's not just meant to be, I have Tourette's, this is what I'm like. We're learning about them as characters. I mean, for me, the dream would be to have a TV series and they are just like your Peppa Pigs, like your Hey Duggies. They're just doing everyday things and just having adventures and fun with their friends and their family, and just as a side from that, almost irrelevant, it just so happens that he has OCD, or it just so happens that she's dyslexic, and it's those kind of things is where I would like them to get to. You almost forget, oh yeah, they do have dyslexia. Like, it's not what makes them who they are. It's just like part of their makeup, as I said.
Exactly. Well, kind of like you even said, it was the just like they have blonde hair, or just like they have they're tall or short, they have a particular thing, and that's. I think that's a wonderful approach to it, because I feel like from what I'm reading is that we're finding so much more the idea that, goodness gracious, this cough. We're finding so much more about the stigmas and the limitations we used to put upon, with children, with people with disabilities, that those aren't there. Like, those were things that, the people who don't have those put upon them, and that's not, and those are being broken, I feel like, daily, these barriers that were placed upon them, or these limitations that we just kind of made the assumptions on. And so I think that's just a wonderful way of, hey, they just live an ordinary life. It has a bit of a difference, just like your life is different, but it's just the way it is. And so I think that's just a wonderful approach to it.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, I mean, we're lucky that actually now as well there are so many incredible, famous people who have done unbelievable things and are very outspoken about the fact they have ADHD. You've got Elon Musk, you've got Richard Branson, all these people who are incredibly successful, and a lot of them actually put that down to having ADHD, to being autistic, because they say, it makes me think differently. It makes me kind of, I'm not that in the box thinking that your everyday person might do. because I have ADHD, I'm doing this and this and this and this, and I'm so much more passionate, or I'm so much more driven. So again, the more children are seeing that and seeing these role models and, you know, people who have achieved great things, it's lovely, because these kids that, like, you know, years ago, exactly like you said, might be shoved in a corner given these limitations, or you'll never do this, you can't do this, and now actually think, oh my god, I can do that, and, you know, I will do that. So it's, yeah, it's, we're definitely heading in a better place. It's just, yeah, trying to get
Yeah,
there.
because exactly. And of course you're being a part of that, and that's wonderful. You know, you dedicating Shine Books to all of this, because it seemed like there's two facets to it. There is the teaching the world that those limitations aren't there, and then teaching them that the limitations aren't there, showing them this is the world, and it's your oyster. You can do you know, we have better ways of, you know, with some of the things that might be treated, or, you know, or any coping mechanisms, you know, we have better ways of doing that. So the world's your oyster now, and then teaching the world, you know, let them fly, let them go, and see, it's just like how you don't want to be held back. We don't need to hold them back. Let them go.
Yeah,
I just think that's
and
a
exactly, you
wonderful.
know, like you said, actually, the fact there's kind of two angles to it, to Shine Books, really, for me, is that certainly when I first started doing them, my main reason I wanted children to see themselves, to have a character they can relate to, you know, much like kind of Disney are doing it amazingly with, you know, their films, and actually, you know, giving little girls black princesses to aspire to, and you know, multicultural and all of that kind of thing is incredible. But I still found there was a real lack of main characters, role models who are dyslexic, have ADHD. But then, so that's kind of my one main angle for it. But then actually, once I kind of really got into doing it, I kind of realized that for me, actually getting these books into mainstream schools is so important, almost much more so because of the point you made. You know, years ago, children would be sent off to a different department, and the wonderful thing is nowadays they're not, and they're in the classroom and everyone's together. But
Yes.
you have this new issue where actually, I always sort of say, if you're a child with Tourette's, you know everything there is about having Tourette's, right? You know your symptoms, you know how you behave, you know what you can do, what you struggle with. But the person next to you doesn't have a clue. And society for so long has kind of thought, oh, well, they don't have Tourette's, so they don't need to know. Whereas actually, it's more important for them to know. So when they're sat in a class now next to someone with Tourette's, or they're friends with someone with Tourette's, they need to understand about it, and actually what they might struggle with, or you know, why it happens. And actually that kind of need for the books to be in mainstream education, for me, as I'm navigating this crazy small business journey, is that, like, I'm now on this huge push, and the mission is for them to be in every school and every library, and, you know, not in your specific, you know, special needs schools, or not in units or departments. Like, they need to be everywhere, because people with neurodiverse brains and ways of learning and ways of behaving are everywhere. Like, this is, you know, we're all on this planet together. So yeah, it's definitely got the kind of two angles, and I love that I get sort of even amounts of reviews from both sides.
Oh,
You know,
real
from
nice.
parents whose kids have said, you know, oh, I can see myself, and they took the book in, and, you know, I've got a book about diabetes, and in the pictures she's got a little pouch on, and obviously how she puts her insulin in. And I've had children that have said, oh my god, like, I've got that, and oh my god, I can see, that's cool, and straight away they don't feel like they're the only one. So yeah, sorry, I went off on a tangent then, but it's
No. This is your tangent to be had. And we could, and then when you said the small business journey, I was like, do not. That's a whole other episode.
yeah, we'll have another podcast on that another
We
day.
don't have the time. What's it's funny you say that, because I remember back when I remember being in high school, we had a friend who, the first time he did it, it was weird, is when he gets the syringe out. He does it like you know, you don't even, because he had diabetes, and for the first time he does it and he sticks himself, you're just like, it's fifth period. Why are you doing that?
Yeah,
But then he says, hey, oh, I have diabetes, and you're like, oh, after that, not a big deal. Like,
yeah,
it is just you don't even realize he's even doing it. And with kids, being able to like, because of course there's so much out there that for kids to learn, that even if they don't know, to be comfortable to ask the question, being like, hey, I don't, say if a kid next to them has, has Tourette's, being able to say like, how do I deal with this? Be able to go to their parents, be able to talk about it, or go to the teacher. And we have the resources to be able to guide them through that, to show, empathy and all the great qualities, to where it's not a big deal. It's okay. I now know how to deal. I know now how to, communicate and be friends with this peer of mine. I just think it's such a wonderful mission that you have. Like, this is just you deserve the TV series.
Well, thank you. If you could, if you've got any friends that you could pass that on to, that would be great. But like you said, one of my books is Emma, an elephant with epilepsy. And again, for me, I actually remember I was at university and someone in my class, no one knew they had epilepsy. It wasn't broadcast, nobody was aware, and she had a fit in one of our classes. And it was really frightening because a lot of us didn't know it was going to happen. We'd not been around it before. We had no awareness or understanding of what was going on. So that, and like I said, for me, university was quite a long time ago. So the fact that still really sticks in my brain. Whereas in the book, Emma, everyone knows that she's got epilepsy. The children are kind of just taught a little bit about what might happen and why it happens. And then she goes to she's going to have a fit. So actually the children are sort of sent out the room or dealt with, and then people can help. But it just makes the situation not scary if A, you're expecting it, and B, you understand about it. So even like you say, you read a book, you read Emma once, that is that seed. And somehow,
Exactly.
you're out in the shops or something happens. And obviously if you've got epilepsy, there's no control. You might have a fit in the middle of a sport match, or, in the middle of the shops, and actually just people around you being like, oh my God, okay, I know what this is. Let us help or move out of the way. But that fear hopefully is gone because you have a little bit of understanding about what it is and why it's happening. So it's that, again, it's all those little tiny seeds and nuggets of information that are just kind of really naturally being, and entering the brain.
Exactly.
That, like you said, exactly, once your friend, you saw them inject insulin once, and then that's it. It's suddenly like, oh yeah, they got diabetes, and it's, it becomes not a thing.
Exactly. And I can just only imagine the generational change. Of course, we've made so much progress in the last, 10 years, 20 years, over the generational change that will occur if those seeds are planted in as many people as possible. Just as much little knowledge. Not everyone can be perfect. Not everyone can know about everything, but just the ability to just have those conversations and be able to constructively have the conversation. And I just think that is, for the next generation, I just think that's it gives you hope, the idea of that, these are the conversations we're having. And yeah. It is wonderful to be able to, support people, like you and your organization Shine Books, to, help further your goal. And speaking of that, how do people support Shine Books?
So, good question. So the website is, this is not your first time, is it?
No.
So the website is shine-books.com. All of the books are also on Amazon, which for all the lovely American folk may be a cheaper option, because shipping, I think, is not the nicest, coming directly from me. And then on social media, we're at the Shine Books on all of it. And with social media, we kind of that's our kind of place. We want everyone to join the conversations. We do lots of interactive stuff, any kind of offers or deals, new books, anything coming out is kind of all through at the Shine Books. So we would kind of ask everyone to come and give us a follow on there, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. And I dabble on TikTok. I'm probably about 20 years too old to be dabbling on TikTok, but I give it a go.
I feel your pain on that. I just started our TikTok like a month ago, and I was like, I am 33 years old. I am a dad. Why am I doing this? That is wonderful. Yes. Oh, perfect. So, and all these links will be on our social media and all of on the show notes. So that is wonderful. And how many? And you have, is it 8 books? Is that what I count right?
Yes, yep. So there's 8 in the series at the moment. Again,
Okay.
the kind of big dream. I'd love to just keep writing them. I kind of one day want to have a book and a character for every condition, every disability. So so every child has sort of got that person they can relate to. But back to the small business thing, it's a slow old process. So yeah, we've got 8 at the moment, which work kind of really nicely as a sort of a set for schools and stuff like that as well. And again, like you said, they're just a good starting point. They're kind of quite common, and some of them are the more well known ones. Obviously, like the autistic character, dyslexia, ADHD. Makes up so much of our population. So that's kind of nice, and then it kind of so often leads to then other conversations and kind of just learning about, I've had some schools who have sort of started with one of the books and then just actually gone in to, learning about neurodiversity as a whole and just actually how brains are wired differently. And they might go into, there's dyscalculia and dysgraphia and, there's all kinds of various different conditions and ways in which our brains are wired. So I think schools can kind of use them as resources just to like you said, start the conversation, right, as well. So it's
That is wonderful. No, that's great. No, we will do what we can to to let the word out, and we want to be part of this conversation. And thank you so much for joining us today. It is wonderful to learn everything. Wonderful.
Thank you, and take care, and hopefully we will catch up soon.
Sounds good. Thank you for joining us.
Take care.
Right. And end scene. Should be stopped. Is it stop? Is it stop? Stop. It says stop. Why does it take